So today we are looking at a really interesting stack of sources. It's, a mix of clinical definitions of severe psychiatric syndromes paired up with um, some fascinating operational data from a place called Coping and Healing Counseling.
Yeah, they're a telehealth practice down in Georgia, right?
Exactly. And we really have two main missions for this deep dive today for you guys listening. First, we're going to completely tear down like a massive cultural misconception about a severe mental health condition called catatonia.
Which is a big one.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And second, we're going to explore the modern, accessible infrastructure you actually need to support mental health recovery when conditions like this strike. So we're looking at the stark contrast between a sudden acute medical crisis and then the steady, always-on nature of a 100% telehealth model.
Right. It's that contrast between the emergency room and the living room, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get into the infrastructure side of things, we really need to talk about the condition itself. Because, when you hear the word catatonia, you probably picture exactly what the movies show, like someone frozen like a statue forever. But our source material today completely flips that script.
It really does. I mean, we have this culturally ingrained image of a person whose brain has essentially just powered down, like the switch is flipped off, the person is trapped, and they're just motionless.
Like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly. It's a very binary cinematic way of looking at it
Yeah.
because, as a society, we prefer illnesses that are visually simple to categorize.
Right. If you're perfectly still, you're catatonic.
Right. But the reality laid out in clinical literature completely shatters that trope. Catatonia is not a permanent state, and it is absolutely not just someone shutting down or, powering off.
Yeah, the clinical definition provided in the source material describes catatonia as a recognized syndrome, and it's defined by disrupted movement and responsiveness.
Right. Disruptive.
Yeah, that word disrupted is carrying a lot of weight here. It doesn't mean the system is erased or permanently broken. It implied like a severe malfunction in the signaling. The connection between a person's intention and their physical execution is essentially scrambled.
It's scrambled, yeah. And, the source notes that the syndrome frequently occurs alongside mood disorders, psychotic conditions, or even underlying medical issues.
It's like a warning light flashing on the dashboard.
That's a great way to put it. It acts as a massive red flag, indicating that the larger neurological or psychological system is under extreme duress. But the most crucial takeaway from the clinical data here is how this disruption actually presents itself in the real world.
Right, because it manifests in two completely opposite extremes, which was wild to read.
Yeah. So on one end of the spectrum, you do have that presentation that mirrors the movie version. You see extreme stillness, individuals holding highly unusual, rigid postures for hours on end. Or they might experience mutism, where they're entirely unable to speak. The motor system is basically locked.
But then you look at the exact opposite end of that spectrum, and this is where our collective understanding just completely fails, because catatonia can manifest as restless, agitated, and excessive movement.
Yes, exactly.
It can be loud, erratic, and look like a person who is entirely overwhelmed with kinetic energy that they just cannot control.
Which fundamentally changes how we need to observe and assess people in distress, Because if a clinician or just a family member only associates catatonia with a frozen statue-like state, they are going to witness this severe agitation and completely misinterpret what's happening right in front of them.
They might think it's a panic attack or something.
Right, exactly. They might classify it as a behavioral outburst, a panic attack, or just severe general anxiety. And they miss the underlying systemic malfunction.
So instead of thinking of catatonia as a car that's just out of gas and parked on the side of the highway, it's more like a broken transmission.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, because sometimes the car won't move at all. It's totally locked up no matter how hard you press the gas pedal. But other times, that engine is wildly revving out of control. It's redlining, tearing itself apart, but the car still isn't responding to the driver's actual input.
It's detached from the driver.
Yeah, the mechanism that translates intent into controlled action is just broken.
And treating a broken transmission requires a highly specific intervention. I mean, you can't just treat the symptoms of the engine revving, you have to fix the linkage. And the source text actually offers a very definitive and honestly optimistic note on this.
Yeah, it does.
It says with prompt, appropriate care, catatonia usually responds well. It's highly treatable. But the operative words there are prompt and appropriate. I mean, a family cannot just wait it out in the living room and hope the neurological signaling fixes itself.
No, absolutely not. Which pulls us directly into the crisis protocol outlined in the text.
Yeah.
And the directive here is incredibly clear, right? Catatonia is classified as a medical emergency.
Yes, full stop. Medical emergency.
Right. It requires prompt evaluation. If someone might be in crisis or physically unsafe, the immediate protocol is to call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. And it specifies that only a licensed clinician can officially diagnose this syndrome.
And there's a really good reason for that. You're dealing with immediate compounding physical risks.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at the mechanics of those two extremes we just talked about.
Okay.
A person who is locked in extreme stillness for an extended period, well, they might not be consuming water or food. They can't protect themselves from environmental harm. Their bodily functions are severely compromised.
Right. They're physically vulnerable.
Exactly. And conversely, a person experiencing the agitated extreme of catatonia, they're burning immense amounts of energy. They're risking severe physical exhaustion, dehydration, and even accidental physical injury from thrashing around.
Okay, but there is an inherent tension in this source material, though, and I want to ask you about this. We are looking at a guide provided by Coping and Healing Counseling, which operates as a telehealth therapy group, right?
Right.
Yet their primary directive for a suspected catatonic crisis is to hang up the phone, call 911, or go to a physical emergency room. Since the source is from a telehealth therapy group, why are they specifically telling people to go to an ER? I mean, can't a licensed telehealth therapist just diagnose this over a secure video call?
I mean, it's a fair question, but you really have to separate acute medical stabilization from ongoing psychological care. The ethics and boundaries of clinical practice demand that physical safety and medical stability are established first, before any therapeutic work can even be attempted.
So it's an order of operations thing.
Exactly. Acute crisis management requires a controlled physical environment. I mean, an emergency room has the infrastructure to monitor vital signs. They can administer intravenous fluids if the patient is dehydrated. They can utilize immediate pharmacological interventions to break the catatonic state.
Right. Things you literally cannot do through a screen.
Right. A telehealth professional cannot reach through a computer screen to administer an IV or physically restrain a patient to prevent them from injuring themselves during a highly agitated state.
Yeah, that makes total sense. The sequencing is non-negotiable. You can't start rebuilding the foundation of a house while the structure is still actively on fire.
Exactly. The emergency room is designed to put out the fire.
And once the acute medical emergency is managed, well, you're left with a patient who has just survived a profound neurological and psychological event.
Yeah, they're physiologically stable, but they are incredibly vulnerable.
Right. They need to understand what happened, manage the underlying mood or psychotic conditions that maybe triggered the episode, and rebuild their daily functionality. And that is exactly where the bridge to ongoing support has to be constructed.
Yes, and that is where coping and healing counseling actually steps into the life cycle of care.
Right. The text explains that once the immediate situation is stabilized, CHC takes over the what comes next phase. They step in to provide ongoing support, therapy, and referrals. But I want to look at the staffing breakdown they provided in the source because this stood out to me.
Oh, yeah, the team composition.
Yeah. They don't just point a post-crisis patient to a single generalized psychiatrist. The practice deploys a diverse team of 15-plus licensed therapists, and they specifically highlight a matrix of LCSWs, LPCs, and LMFTs.
Right.
Now, if someone is recovering from a severe condition like catatonia, my instinct says they need strict psychiatric oversight. What is the strategic advantage of routing them through clinical social workers and marriage or family therapists? Why does a practice need so many different types of licensed professionals just to handle post-crisis support?
Well, because surviving the acute episode in the ER is only the first phase of recovery. The ER manages the immediate neurology, right? But these specific disciplines address the complex ecosystem surrounding the patient.
The ecosystem, right?
Recovery from a mental health crisis is never a singular, isolated event. It ripples through a person's entire life. So, for example, An LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist. They approach the patient as a component of a larger family system.
Okay.
If an individual experiences a severe catatonic episode, the family members who witnessed it are dealing with their own secondary trauma.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about the family.
Right. They need clinical guidance on how to rebuild a supportive home environment, how to communicate, and how to monitor for future warning signs without, becoming overbearing or anxious.
So the LMFT is actively treating the relational web, basically repairing the disrupted family dynamic post-crisis.
Correct. And meanwhile, an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, brings a completely different clinical lens to the table. They are trained to navigate the intersection of mental health and environmental stressors.
At real-world problems.
Exactly. A patient recovering from a severe episode might be facing job loss, housing instability, or just difficulty reintegrating into their community. The LCSW provides clinical therapy while simultaneously helping the patient navigate those systemic hurdles.
Right.
And then an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, focuses heavily on the individual's internal cognitive and emotional processing, helping them rebuild their internal narrative and their coping mechanisms.
Yeah, and the source specifically notes that CHC prides itself on being a diverse, culturally competent team.
Hmm.
So by stacking these different licenses, they're essentially acknowledging that mental health recovery requires a multidisciplinary toolkit.
Yes.
You can't just hand a patient a generic recovery pamphlet and send them on their way. You have to tailor the ongoing care to the exact contours of their life, their family, their culture, their community.
It is a highly intentional structuring of care. They are building a comprehensive safety net designed to catch all the different ways a person might fall after a crisis.
Okay, so we know who is providing the ongoing care, but now we really need to examine how they are delivering it. Because the operational model outlined here serves as a fascinating case study in dismantling structural barriers to healthcare.
It really does.
According to the text, this practice serves all 159 counties in Georgia, and they do it using a 100% telehealth IPA-compliant model.
Which is huge. I mean, covering 159 counties is a massive logistical footprint. It effectively removes geography from the equation of care entirely.
Because historically, specialized mental health care has operated on a strict hub-and-spoke model, right?
Yeah.
Like you have massive, highly resourced medical centers centralized in major urban hubs like Atlanta.
Right.
And patients in surrounding areas are expected to travel inward to receive care. But this 100% telehealth model completely inverts that structure. It decentralizes the care entirely.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if a patient is recovering in a downtown high-rise or on a remote rural farm hours away from a physical clinic. The point of care is placed directly into their living room.
Serving 159 counties with a 100% telehealth model feels like building a statewide safety net made entirely out of Wi-Fi. Doesn't matter if you live in a bustling city or a rural farm, the clinic is exactly the same distance away, right in your living room.
And the clinical benefit of that decentralization just cannot be overstated, especially when you look at the conditions CHC specializes in treating. The source lists their focus areas: anxiety, depression, trauma and PTSD, grief, relationship issues, and severe stress.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, and they provide individual, couples, family, and teen therapy, which is for ages 13 and up. Now, when a patient is dealing with severe depression or PTSD, the condition itself saps their motivation, their energy, and their executive function.
The friction of the commute alone can defeat the patient before they even begin. I mean, getting out of bed is hard enough.
Precisely. If a patient in a rural county needs specialized trauma therapy and their only option is to drive 2 hours each way for a 50-minute appointment, that logistical friction is often insurmountable.
Right. A working parent can't easily sacrifice half a day's wages for that.
Exactly. A teenager trying to maintain their academic standing can't consistently miss school. So by transitioning to a 100% remote platform that is HIPAA compliant, meaning patient privacy and data security are strictly protected under federal law, the practice drastically lowers the activation energy required to initiate and maintain treatment.
Yeah.
It provides a level of accessibility and anonymity that a physical waiting room simply cannot offer.
But, even if you completely decentralize the care and eliminate the geographical barriers, you inevitably hit the financial wall.
Always.
Because American healthcare is notoriously expensive, and specialized therapy is frequently framed as like a luxury good, requiring hundreds of dollars out of pocket per session.
Yes.
But this is where the financial data provided in the source material becomes incredibly important because it challenges that narrative entirely. We always hear about therapy being incredibly expensive, But when you look at these numbers, I mean, does this fundamentally change who actually gets to ask for help?
Oh, absolutely. The economics of a telehealth model allow for a completely different fee structure. I mean, without the massive overhead of maintaining multiple physical clinic spaces across 159 counties, a practice can redirect those resources into expanding their insurance networks.
Right, because real estate is expensive.
Exactly.
The numbers they provide in the source are striking. For patients utilizing Medicaid, it explicitly states there is a $0 copay. Zero.
Which is incredible.
And for private insurance, they've integrated with a massive roster of major carriers. They list Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana. And for patients under those private insurances, the copays range from just $10 to $40 per session.
And this fundamentally shifts the demographic of who can sustain long-term mental health support. I mean, if a family is trying to secure therapy for a teenager who's exhibiting early signs of a mood disorder, they don't have to choose between their basic household budget and their child's psychological well-being.
Yeah, it's actively dismantling the two heaviest anchors, holding people back from consistent care, transit, and cost.
Yep, the two biggest hurdles.
And as part of this low-friction model, the source data actually lists their direct intake pathways to demonstrate just how immediate the access is. Patients can call 404-832-0102. They can navigate to cheattherapy.com, or they can even just email their intake team at support@cheattherapy.com.
It's just very straightforward.
Yeah. It's not just about making the care affordable. It's about making the point of entry as seamless as possible. When you lower the barrier to entry this aggressively, you catch people before their symptoms escalate into the kind of acute medical emergencies we were discussing earlier.
Exactly. It moves the system from being purely reactive to being proactive. I mean, the emergency room is the reactive measure for the crisis, right? But the low barrier telehealth network, that's the proactive system that stabilizes the community over the long term.
All right, so let's take a step back and look at the entire landscape we have covered today. We started by taking hammer to the cultural myth of catatonia. We learned that it is not simply a quiet, frozen state of shutting down. It is a severe neurological and psychological disruption that can actually present as wildly restless, agitated, and excessively loud.
Right. And we established the absolute necessity of treating those extreme states as acute medical emergencies, recognizing that physical stabilization in an emergency room must precede any psychological intervention.
Yeah. And finally, we explored the bridge to ongoing recovery. We looked at how a practice like coping and healing counseling utilizes a multidisciplinary team of LCSWs, LPCs, and LMFTs to address the complex reality of post-crisis life.
Right.
By deploying that expertise over a decentralized 100% telehealth network and keeping copays between $0 and $40, they ensure that the safety net actually functions for the people who need it most, regardless of their zip code.
It really demonstrates what modern mental health care infrastructure can achieve when it focuses on just eliminating friction.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive for you guys, I want to bring us back to the very first insight we unpacked today. We learned that our culturally ingrained image of a severe condition like catatonia, that motionless statue, is entirely missing half the truth.
Yeah.
It can actually manifest as restless, kinetic agitation.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if our collective understanding of such a severe documented medical crisis is completely missing the other half of the picture. What other mental health struggles are happening right in front of us that we are completely misinterpreting simply because we do not know what to look for?